Welcome to the Juicebox podcast. My name is Matthew.
And I'm Briley.
And in this series of conversations, we'll be sitting down with the builders and community members of the Juicebox ecosystem.
Today, we'll be talking with Stevie from Marin County Swim Association.
Marin County Swim Association is a 501c nonprofit raising funds to make aquatics more accessible in Marin County, California. Historically, residents have had to travel out of county to participate in high-level competitions, creating financial barriers for underrepresented youth to participate. MCSA aims to bring these opportunities back to the community by providing access to tournaments, equipment, and lessons at low or no cost.
In this episode, we discuss the current barriers to access aquatics in Marin County, Stevie's background as a water polo coach, and how he discovered crypto before becoming a JuiceboxDAO contributor. He also tells us about his experience fundraising for MCSA on Juicebox and how it can enable greater transparency for nonprofit organizations.
We hope you enjoy this week's episode.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Stevie. How's it going?
Things are going well. I'm honored that you two would even consider me a guest. So honestly, it's really my pleasure to be here. And I very much appreciate you taking the time to dive into some of the things that I've been working on for a long time. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. We love everything that you do. And it's kind of nice to have you on the other side of the table. As you know, before we were producing the podcast, you and Philip are working on it. So it's nice to be able to sit down and have a chat with you.
Yeah, I'm actually never been I did one time with Sage and Zombie, but I think that episode probably got buried somewhere. But I've never been a podcast guest. I've hosted a ton. So this is my first, actually. My second. I'm going to give Zombie and Sage a little credit. It was kind of a drunken escapade, but I don't. we won't talk about that.
All right. Well, you're a very accomplished aquatics coach. I can just imagine you have this huge trophy room full of awards and ribbons. How did you start coaching aquatics? Did you start as a player and then become a coach, or what was your trajectory?
Yeah, I've been coaching basically since right out of college. I went to school on the East Coast. I went to Queens College in New York City and played water polo and swam there. And went to community college before that in California. There was this wave of California and international players that were going out to the East Coast, getting scholarships. And so I was one of the lucky ones. And when I moved back home, I was really just looking for a job, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a film major, so I really wanted to be involved in media, film and audio and a lot of that kind of stuff. So I've been doing a lot of that on the side for pretty much my whole life. And so I started coaching a brand new high school that was right in the city where I grew up in, and then did that for about a year. And then the head coach there, he got a community college job. And he was moving to San Mateo, which is in Northern California. And he just said, you need to be the head coach. And I was 22 years old, didn't know what I was doing at all. And so I just said, okay, and I did it. And that started leading me down this really interesting path of trying to sustain a lifestyle while still coaching, because I really loved coaching and it was something that was a really good outlet for me, but it doesn't pay very well. And so that was where the hustler mentality came in, and really just started to find ways to produce money for myself in a legal way, of course, but just trying to find ways to make money. So that sort of led me to starting my very first nonprofit in 2003 or 2004, which was a nonprofit water polo club for kids. And there wasn't a lot of age group water polo back then. And so I did it. And that led me down a whole different path in terms of learning about nonprofits and running a club and administration and board of directors, all that kind of stuff. So that's where it went. And it just kept going. I mean, I did a bunch of different things. You would laugh if I told you all the things that I've done just to sustain coaching.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, what's the craziest?
The craziest thing was probably that I owned a car dealership from 2004 till about 2007 or so. And basically the way it works is you can get a dealer's license. And in order to sell to the public, you have to have a retail dealer's license. And in order to do that, you have to have a physical office with a parking spots that are zoned for car sales. And so if you notice in every city, a lot of the dealerships are in the same place. The reason for that is because that's zoned for car dealerships. And so I happened to find an office in Mission Viejo, and it was literally above an adult sex shop. And I just, out of one office, I had like 2 parking spots, and people would come to me, and I'd go to the car auctions, like off-lease car auctions, which every car dealer in America goes to. It's called Manheim. And I would go and buy 1 or 2 cars at a time. And then people would save thousands of dollars. I'd make my money. And that just sort of was the hustle. And the crazy thing about it was that in the beginning, you weren't allowed a credit line. You weren't even allowed to write checks. So when you first start out, you basically have to pay for everything cash. So my very first client gave me 35 grand cash, and I bought the car, delivered it to him, and that was my first sale. It was awesome. It was a crazy thrill. But what I realized then was that I was coaching and doing that. And what I realized at that time was that there is a hustler, and then there's the ultimate hustler, and I wasn't the ultimate hustler. And you have to be really, really just, that industry is very cutthroat. You know what I mean? There's a lot of money changing hands. There's a lot of things at stake. So I just said that wasn't really for me. But coincidentally, Concordia University was starting a water polo program, and my ex-swim coach got the job of aquatics director. And he called me and said, we are starting water polo. Would you be interested in doing this? And it was my first full-time, with benefits coaching job. And so I took it. And that was in 2007. Like I said, I've done a bunch of other stuff, but that was probably the craziest experience. But I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot about recruiting, actually. I learned a lot about business and how to talk to people a certain way. So it was a good experience for me.
Okay, so we've got car dealerships, we've got aquatics coaching. How did you get involved with crypto? I mean, these things are oceans apart. I'm very curious to know the Stevie G origin story.
My brother, actually, he told me about ETH really early. And of course, just like probably everybody in the world, didn't listen.
Of course.
Waited. And honestly, I wish I had some crazy story, but I just started following Bitcoin after I made a film in 2016 about an artist named Zio Ziegler. And one of the people I interviewed for that film was a guy named Shervin Pishavar. And he's a really famous investor who actually just came out yesterday or the day before that he's investing in Kanye West's new stores that they're building. So he's kind of the lead investor in that, where he broke away from Gap. And he told me about it. And I didn't listen. I mean, this was 2015. I didn't listen, but I put it in my phone in like the stocks watch on your iPhone.
Okay.
And I just saw it, Bitcoin was the first thing I saw. It was like, under 100, then under 1,000 or whatever it was, under 1,000. I don't remember the price, but I just saw it going up and up and up. And then finally spoke with my brother again and going, tell me about that thing. And, about 2017, 2018, I was really immersed into the ICO and all these different use cases. And I just started buying. And of course, just like everyone else, trying to speculate, trying to, get that huge hit. Nothing really worked ever. It was just the best thing for me to do was just to buy and hold. And so I did. And then I've always been sort of research based. Once I get into something, I really try to find the nuances of it and really try to learn the most I can. And I started seeing the parallels between what happened with me during the coming of age of internet and crypto. And I started seeing some parallels. And obviously there's a lot of things written about that now, but I actually lived that. I'm probably older than most people that are in Juicebox. And so I remember we had dial-up modem and what it meant to sign onto the internet and how things were changing. And I saw those parallels and I told myself, I said, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. This is really intriguing. I mean, that's sort of where it went. And I didn't understand DAOs or any of that stuff. I didn't even know what that meant. I just kept seeing the word or the acronym and kept diving in as deep as I could. And then eventually found Juicebox, which has been pretty amazing.
So what led you to Juicebox? I'm also very curious to know how you fell down this little rabbit hole, this particular corner of the Ethereum ecosystem. It's very particular.
It is. It's very niche, to say the least, but it started with SharkDAO. I found SharkDAO through Nouns. Honestly, I don't even remember how I found Nouns. And I saw SharkDAO and got in there, and I saw these cool the nouns basically. And I went in there and I just said, hey, we should make shirts of this. We should make hoodies. And everyone in the Discord was like, yeah, we should do that. And so I made like 100 hoodies, light blue ones and black ones. And I just said, okay, who wants one? And a bunch of people started ordering them, or a bunch of people started filling in the Google Doc, and I gave them to them for free. I just sent them to everyone that ordered for free. And I don't know why, but I just felt like it was like, this is so cool. I got to do it. And then it was Nicholas and Zug, I believe, first. And I went into Juicebox because I saw that SharkDAO was on Juicebox. So I was like, what is this? I got to figure this thing out. And then I said the same thing. I want to make some crews and Django was like, you should do Merch Squad. But I never really knew how to do it. You know what I mean? Honestly, I still don't really know how to like incentivize buying or giving apparel and all these other things. It's not as easy as like I think a lot of people think, because people want to just buy things with a credit card and they don't want to spend their ETH or whatever. So I found Juicebox, and the first call I was on was with Nicholas and Zug. I'll never forget. It was like nighttime, like 10 o'clock at night, my time. And I just sat there and listened to them talking. And that was about a month before Constitution DAO.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I just started saying, hey, maybe I could help with this. Maybe I could help with that. And I would say for the people listening, at the end of the town hall, Nicholas or Philip say, hey, does anybody want to say something? That was my opportunity to finally say something and like kind of give my idea. And when they accepted that, when they were like open to that idea or whatever idea I threw out there, that made me feel really good. That made me feel like maybe this is where I should spend some time, like-minded individuals. And I've been in ever since, starting with apparel to governance to connecting people, trying to do business development or whatever it is, onboarding, just sort of evolving into whatever Juicebox needs.
Right. So father of 4, aquatics coach, Juicebox, Slice, Merch Squad. Is there anything else that you do? Like, it's amazing that you have time for all of this stuff.
Yeah, this is where I learned early on with coaching was not working one job, not doing one thing, but doing multiple things. So my life consists of obviously husband, father first, but I'm a professor at a community college here in Marin, and I have 2 master's degrees, one in education, focused on equity-minded teaching and teaching like in a global society. And I have a master's in kinesiology, a fancy way of saying physical education, PE. And so I'm a full-time faculty at a local community college here. And for coaching, especially in aquatics, community college is the best job you can get. It's like the mecca of aquatics jobs because you're getting paid a good salary, but you also have all the benefits with the pension, and you're only focused on coaching your team, and you maybe teach a class or 2. And so it's my dream job. I've been searching for it for a really long time. And so that's like one side. And then on the other side, I spend most of my free time on Juicebox, all weird hours of the day and night. I'll get up at 5 a.m. and start jumping on the Discord and stuff like that. And then I also run Marin County Swim Association. And so Marin County Swim Association is my nonprofit that I started when I moved to Marin. And I was really focused on equity and inclusion and trying to get as many people who are underserved in the Marin County area involved with aquatics. And aquatics, if you just Google it, it's historically been inequitable. It's kind of sickening how the inequalities in aquatics have been for a long, long time. Just no access to pools, discrimination, everything you can think of. And in Marin, most people see Marin County as like an affluent white neighborhood, but the truth is there's several pockets of underrepresented and underserved minorities that don't have access to certain sports and athletic programs because the bar of entry is just too high. Things cost a lot.
Right.
So my mission was to try to create fundraising opportunities that would allow for me to give some of those funds back to help provide those opportunities for as low cost as humanly possible. And as Django has said before, driving everyone's cost to zero, that's sort of where I got that. Wow, maybe I could take these opportunities, and what if lessons were free? What if this water polo tournament was free? What if this swim meet was free? Now, we're not there yet. That's the ultimate goal. But I think if we could just in aquatics, let's just say in aquatics in general, if we could have that mentality, we're going to teach more people how to swim. We're going to prevent more deaths. We're going to create a better athletic base. It would be awesome if the USA water polo team, the men, won the gold medal. That'd be awesome if they won the Olympics. I actually have a player who I coached who's on the Olympic team.
Wow.
I want them to do well. But if you're only pulling from one certain area or even one certain ethnicity, you're missing out on a huge amount of athletic talent that don't even know how to swim. And so how do we get to that point? I mean, hopefully my small contribution, that's what Marin County Swim Association really is.
And when did you found this nonprofit? Like, how long have you been working on this project?
This actually started right when I moved here. So I moved to Marin 2.5 years ago and pretty much in the middle of pandemic. So thinking about how I was going to do it and then filed the paperwork. So I've been like running it for about 1.5 years or so, full force. But I mean, I took a lot of the experience that I had from the club or the nonprofit I started in Irvine. I took all of that experience and brought it up here. So the transition was pretty easy. I knew exactly what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Community college is about opportunity and it's about giving everyone an equal playing field. Well, the people who go to community college are normally the underserved and underrepresented,
Mm-hmm.
especially here in Marin. And so my goal was, how can I get people to play water polo for me at the College of Marin? Like, how am I going to do that? Because the rich people don't want to go to community college no matter what. And so my goal was, hey, if I teach this kid how to swim, then in 10 years, he might say, hey, I want to go play for that coach. And if the instructors look like the kid, then they're even more inspired to follow that same path. And so my plan is a 10-year plan. It's not a 1 year, 2 year, or 6 months. I'm looking at this like what I'm doing now is going to benefit me in 10 years. And I think a lot of times we have to think like that. You know, when we're trying to change or make change, you have to look long term. You can't just look day to day because it's so hard looking day to day because the needle doesn't move very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It moves very, very slow. If you compare that to like adoption of crypto and, it's the younger generation that's really propelling all this stuff forward. It's not the older generation because they're already set in their ways. So trying to change the minds of people who are down here, the young parents, that's who I'm really focused on.
Why did you start a Juicebox project for Marin County Swim Association?
I really wanted to drive the cost to zero, I think. And I thought that this would be a good way to set an example for other nonprofit organizations to have more transparency in what they're doing. And I'm not there yet with the MCSA Juicebox, but it's given me a lot of ideas about how to present that transparency for all the things that I'm doing. I'm running a tournament this weekend, for example, and thankfully I have great people to help me. It's all about trying to create that payout so that people can see where those funds are going. And you're supposed to do that anyway. When you're running a nonprofit, everything is supposed to be public. And so it almost makes sense. This platform was designed to create transparency for fundraising and building things.
Right.
And according to the law, we're supposed to be doing that with the nonprofit anyway. So why not merge the two and see if I could inspire other people to do the same? And luckily, several people actually, have donated and helped. And that stuff has gone to pay for equipment for local aquatics teams here, apparel for local aquatics teams. Those funds are going towards the mission, basically.
Right. And so the second annual kickoff is starting tomorrow. I remember seeing a post on Twitter. A couple stats that stand out to me are 51 games each day and 10 teams. It sounds completely insane. Can you tell us about it, like everything that's going on with it?
Yeah, so we have 40 teams among all different age groups, 10 and under, 12 and under, 14 and under, boys and girls. We rent the facility and we get referees. And we obviously sanction the event, get insurance, the whole deal. We have people to work the desk and the clocks and do stats. And teams pay an entry fee to cover the cost of the tournament. And then if there's any leftover profit, which usually there is, we put that obviously into the association. And so it sits in MCSA. And so the tournaments are a way to fundraise to do other things. And so October 14th, we're having another tournament, and we actually have invited 2 Olympic gold medalists to come and run a free clinic for the participants of that tournament. But usually participants would have to pay for that camp or clinic, those photo ops with the gold medal and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But we're going to do it for free. And so we're going to take that profit and we're going to apply it towards paying those Olympians. And that helps them continue their dream of going to the next Olympics. So it's all kind of like a circle, raising money. You're trying to provide more opportunities for the kids, you give them role models and people to look up to, and then you're in turn supporting their Olympic journey or their Olympic dream because they're not getting paid very much, if at all. So this is actually kind of a small tournament. The post I think you were referring to may have been something that we did for the entire region of Northern California. And it was like 110 teams over 3 days, like 15 pools. Just imagine average 10 kids per team. And we did that on back-to-back weekends. So we did it the second weekend of June and the third weekend of June, every age group, 10s all the way to 18 and under. I mean, it was massive, crazy, insane planning. But I've been doing this for so long. This is like my 18th year running tournaments and events. And every year I get better. I learn something. And I don't know what it is. I love doing it. I love producing events. I mean, back in the day, I produced concerts, like I did a couple shows at the Coach House and the Galaxy Theater and all these different things. And I'd get like a showcase of bands, hip hop artists and rock and punk, and they'd all play their sets and they'd all bring in their different crowds. And I just loved that. It's a rush, it's a rush to like produce things like that and have them be successful. And so I think this is like kind of an extension of that, having people really happy and having things local. Most people don't even know who's doing it or that it's me doing it, but the people I respect know. And that's more important, I think, than anything else. Is like, I just tweeted this actually a couple of days ago. Being respected by the people you respect is the best compliment ever. That's why I keep doing it. I think I'll probably be doing this for the rest of my life, just producing tournaments and events. Yeah.
What is your favorite part of being a coach? Because I know that you're not only a coach for other kids and young people, but also for your own kids, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if you could speak a bit about your experience as a coach and what you've learned.
I've learned a lot. Number one, how to talk to people. And I've learned how to try to understand the nuances of every person's personality and trying to get down on a deeper level, because you're requiring so much of these people and they're putting their hopes and dreams in your hands. And it sounds almost cheesy, but it's true. These kids have dreams and they want to go to the top universities and they want to be in the Olympics and they want to be on the national team, and they're entrusting you with that development. And when you see people achieve those goals, it inspires you to keep going and to keep doing it, but it also makes you reflect back on the kids that maybe you didn't reach, the kids that you maybe didn't have that close of a connection to, or even the kids that may have hated you, because you're not going to reach everybody. Not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to love you. But very few of us in our lives reflect back on things that we do because you have an opportunity to do something better the next year. For your case, you could look back on previous episodes of early podcasts and you're probably, oh my gosh, like I'm never doing that again. Or, like things that you screwed up on, and
Yep.
Yeah. And it causes you to take personal responsibility for things because you're accountable to a crowd or to an audience. Well, for me, I'm accountable to parents. I'm accountable to that person. And so it's helped me also be a better parent because I don't want to be like some of the parents that I have to deal with. Now I'm not dealing with that because I'm coaching some older kids, but you referred to coaching my son. I coach my son in the 16 under team. I still get the drama and parents think their kid's better than they are or whatever it might be. They need more playing time or so on and so forth. But you learn how to manage those expectations and you learn how to manage those personalities. And I think it also keeps you young. Coaching, it keeps you connected with a younger generation. They see me as like an old man, like, oh my God, there's old man Steve. But the truth is, like, I'm learning as much from them as they are from me. And I've always said to all my players, I probably have thousands of players that I've coached. And I say to them all, you're giving me just as much as I'm giving you. because they always say to me, oh my gosh, thank you so much. When that kid gets into Harvard or Stanford or the Olympics, when those things happen, they're massive things in their life. Like that's a huge moment for them and their families. And they want to be thankful and appreciative and all these different things. But the truth is they did all the work. They're the ones who are there every day. I'm just the guide and I'm just sort of holding their hand or helping them through the hard times. And I had that growing up. I had coaches like that and I had parents like that were supportive and helpful. And I had some coaches that weren't like that. And so taking that mentality and applying it to other parts of your life, like Juicebox, onboarding, talking to people, connecting people. Hey, like I know this person, connect with them and be on this episode, or connecting people all over the place. As you guys know, I mean, I try to anyway. That all stems from that mentality of like, you're helping me as much as I'm helping you. If I help you, I know eventually it'll come back. And it's so cliche, but it's so true. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And if you're passionate about something, you're passionate about helping people, you got to be on the ground floor. You can't do it from afar. You got to be in front of them every day, committed and dedicated to what you're doing. And I've always felt like that. And I try to apply that to everything I do, including Juicebox. And Juicebox is the culture and all that stuff is really fun. But the people who last in Juicebox are the ones who take it seriously. They know, okay, I got to do work right now. And it could still be fun. And, we could still laugh and jam, but I think all of us, including you two, obviously, when it's time to get to work. And that's the same as the coaching mentality.
Thank you so much, Stevie. That was such a nice chance to get to know you better and learn more about this interest of yours, which is something that we would never really know much about if we weren't speaking to you because we're not water polo players. But yeah, I feel like what you're doing has a lot of really universal themes that we can learn from, whether that's working in crypto or whether that's coaching like you're doing or teaching or all these other ways that we interact with people. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
On another note, has there been any reaction to you fundraising for the MCSA through Juicebox? Do you feel like anyone that you've interacted with, have their views on crypto changed at all as a result of the project fundraising in this way? Or have you had any discussions with people that were prompted by this?
Nothing negative. I am trying to introduce new aspects to the water polo community. For example, I have this artist named Sammy Binko, who is actually a pretty famous artist who was a water polo player. And he did a bunch of designs for each one of my tournaments. And so I minted one, offering it as a free mint. I think maybe one or two people have done it, but I think just seeing that mint button will create questions and sort of like, what is this? And so I'm trying to start slowly introducing this thing that people have probably heard, but haven't seen it. And I do think that eventually crypto and community governance and community ownership is the way to project a sport like water polo forward, because we don't have funding, because the community of water polo doesn't feel like they have any ownership over what happens in the sport. And so if you dig deep inside of Juicebox, there's a project that is the Professional Water Polo League, PWPL. And I started that a long time ago because I wanted to think about an idea of creating the first professional sports league through Juicebox. And I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that, but I want to give the ownership and the community of water polo sort of ownership of the league. And I've been talking to some people, on the higher up, and I sit on one of the boards for the organization that oversees water polo here in the United States. And so there's a lot of things that I want to do, but we got to educate people. It needs to be familiar, and it's just not there yet. So just slowly but surely trying to introduce new things like the minting of the NFT, and we'll see where it goes from there. No negative, though. Everybody's been pretty positive, and I think most people just sort of glance over it. You know what I mean? Most people don't even pay attention. They just want to look at the schedule or whatever,
Right. And as both a contributor to JuiceboxDAO and a project creator, what are your thoughts on using Juicebox to manage your own nonprofit?
I think it's a really good way. And I think right now it's still, as we hear this too much, but I think it's still a little early. But I mean, I could really, really see the parallels between a DAO and a nonprofit. I mean, they're the same thing, honestly. The multi-sig signers are, in a way, the board of directors,
Totally.
and the payouts are the people you're hiring to do the work in the nonprofit.
Right.
And the NFT reward is the nonprofit letter that you're getting to show to your tax person. Eventually, that's where it's going to be. It's going to be like all the profits from the tournaments are going to go into the juice box. There's going to be the transparency layer of paying people out. There's going to be the nonprofit letter for people who are donating. And like at the end of the year, you might get more donations because people are looking for a tax write-off. And so I think there's been some talk within the Discord of like using fiat on-ramps into Juicebox. If you go to the very bottom of the Discord, there's a channel there. I think it's ramp, something like that. I think that is something that's going to just blow the doors off most people if they can like donate some fiat to this and still get community ownership.
Totally.
And that will help nonprofits move forward onto Juicebox. I really want to set the standard, but also be the guinea pig because there's going to be mistakes and there's going to be things that happen. I mean, I've been through an audit before with my old nonprofit, and you got to be tight. You cannot screw around with a 501c3 organization. The US government is serious about what you're using a nonprofit for. So I think applying those tight sort of borders for running your nonprofit on Juicebox is important, and there needs to be some education behind that. Jiggly reached out to me about helping somebody that he knows to do that. I love to talk about what I've learned because I've learned a lot, but I definitely don't know it all. I mean, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not a lawyer, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I hope other people and other nonprofits, including community-centered nonprofits, like people who are helping homeless and things of that nature. I think Juicebox is just a phenomenal, transparent platform to use for stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you want to share what you feel like you have learned from this process and how you're going to take that forward and what you think other people that are working in similar industries should think about?
The first thing I learned is that you have to be ready and willing to share the numbers. If you're going to run an organization with a very clear defined mission, you need to be able to have good accounting, good budgeting, and that needs to be available at the drop of a hat. And I think a lot of people skip that because numbers and QuickBooks and accounting and all that stuff, it's scary for a lot of people. That's the number one thing that I learned is that the books have to be tight. And Juicebox creates an avenue to do that, to see it in front of you. But there still needs to be a way for you to go back and look way in the past or pull out a yearly accounting or, you know what I mean? It's not like a QuickBooks where it's built for aggregating everything that's happened over the course of the year. I don't know, maybe that's a great idea that someone can create for it, like printing out all the funding cycles for the year just to see what happened.
Totally.
But that's number one. The second thing that I've learned is that you have to take, and I'm talking specifically nonprofits here, so this isn't necessarily a Juicebox thing, but the town halls that we have in Juicebox are pretty much board meetings in my mind. And you have to have board meetings. You have to get together with the people and the contributors and the community that is looking to you to provide a service. And you have to be transparent in what you're doing, what you're building, what you're working on, what ideas you have, and how you're going to execute those ideas. I think the more you can do that, the more people trust that community, the more people trust that organization, and the more they're willing to put their hard-earned money into that organization because they know that funds are being spent well and they know that their voice has been heard. And I think Juicebox does a great job of doing that. If you've been around Juicebox for a while, you know that the town halls on Tuesday, things are tight. People are talking about their ideas. They're talking about what's happening, how it's getting built, where the snags are, where we're failing. People don't often recognize that, hey, you know what? I tried to do this and I screwed up, or I tried to do that and it didn't work. That's good. That's a good thing. That helps other people get inspired and maybe help pick the ball up and keep running with it. So those are the two things: meetings where you can communicate your goals, and accounting where you can represent the funds that you've received and how you're going to use them.
For listeners who might not know, your role at Juicebox, among other things, is doing a lot of onboarding calls. So for new project creators who are coming into the ecosystem and need some advice for how to set up their project and how to get started, you're often the first person that they talk to. And I was wondering what you thought the hardest parts of explaining Juicebox to a newcomer are. What do people get stuck on, and what is the hardest thing to explain to newcomers?
I think the hardest thing right now is the first funding cycle. And I've talked to Strath a couple times. He's new with Peel.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple meetings. I think one of the hurdles is I want to raise this much money and I want to pay myself this much money. And there's no way to put that in. So I want to raise $1 million. That's my total goal. But I want to pay myself $2,000 a month. You can't do both right now. And so people get stuck on the funding cycle because they feel like, oh, well, if I put a 14-day funding cycle, then I have to think about overflow. I got to think about. And so when I sit down and talk to them about it and I explain to them, you can pull out this much money, but you can't pull out any more than this much money for that funding cycle. It makes more sense to them. But I think people are so used to seeing it separate. I want to raise X. I want to pay myself Y, and let me see it that way. That's what I've personally felt has been the biggest hurdle. And it doesn't take very long to explain that and like walk them through it, but it's a little confusing. With that being said, and I've said this 100 times, Juicebox should be hard. It shouldn't be super easy. It's pretty easy right now, but there needs to be some sort of guardrails in terms of how people are fundraising. And we don't want just things to go off the rails. Building slow and making sure that everything is really tight is the way we should be going, which is the way we are going. And I caution against being too marketing and all these other things because there's still so much that all of us are learning and so many different changes and iterations of Juicebox that the pace that we're going is really, really perfect, in my opinion. It's allowed people like myself who are non-technical to learn it and to be able to explain it. And it's also allowed us to fix problems or bugs or whatever that pop up in a timely manner without it affecting a ton of people, let's say. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's sort of what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the power of Juicebox also is what makes it a little bit difficult to explain because it is so flexible and it can do so much, and that complexity can be overwhelming to a newcomer. And it's this situation where we've built a tool that is almost limitless in its applications. And so therefore the burden is on users to come in and say, hey, actually, I could do this thing with this. And eventually people start to figure out all these different things that JB can be used for. But until then, it's just this really powerful thing. There's sort of a paradox there in terms of it being so open for different uses and super flexible, but then also being hard to explain and complex.
One of the things that I've spoken to a few people about is the parallels between angel investing and traditional venture capital and something like Juicebox and crowdfunding. And I think with some of the terms that angel investors and that world uses, there's a lot of parallels there. And in a way, Juicebox is positioned fairly well to disrupt some of that. Here's another thing I've done. I've done angel investing. I have about 40 or so investments that I've made at the seed stage. I have no exits yet. I've had a couple flops, but, sort of still waiting. I have one unicorn, but there's no cash yet because we haven't gone public or anything like that. So I've read a lot of deal memos. I've been in a lot of founder webinars where they're talking about they're pitching basically to the syndicate or to the investment group that we're a part of. And I really see this transition or this opportunity to attract builders to Juicebox and run their startup on Juicebox. A great example is Slice. Slice is a perfect example of that. We had meetings with investors, like name brand investors.
Right.
And I can see how if the community and the users start putting their funds in and start understanding that they have part ownership of that, I think you could see a huge disruption. But until a startup other than Juicebox is running their startup through Juicebox, and then they have an exit, let's say, like someone buys them or they go public or something, that will happen eventually. That absolutely will happen. I hope it's Slice. I hope it's Jacobo. But if not, that's going to happen in the future for sure. And that's going to be a game changer for every builder in Web3 because they're going to just say, look, I don't need to go here to this venture capital firm. I'm going to fundraise off the people who are already using my product. And they're the ones who are going to benefit when we go public or when we get bought or whatever it might be. And that's who I'm onboarding. That's who I try to capture the most. I'm DMing people on Twitter. I'm randomly reaching out to people after I've read an article. We're all onboarding. People say Stevie's onboarding. All of us are onboarding. We're all talking about it. We're all trying to spread the word. It's just like a lucky, like a JuiceboxDAO or MoonDAO or whatever it might be. The truth is we're all trying to evangelize this thing. We do have a vested interest, but it's not like we're going to just retire off of this. It's more because we want to see products being built and services being built while the community has ownership. Imagine Instagram giving their community ownership. The people who built that platform should be rich. The people who helped build that community, the users, should be well off. They're not. They don't have anything. Some of them get paid, but that's where we need to steer the ship, I think. Community ownership, community benefit. The only way to do that is through a project like Juicebox, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
So wrapping up a bit, if listeners want to support Marin County Swim Association, where should they go? What should they do?
I think the first thing they could do is go to swimmarin.com and just check out the website and check out some of the events that we're running. Eventually, we'll put up some initiatives that we're doing and what the next steps are. So swimmarin.com would be great. And thanks to Aeolian and his extension, I put a little pay with Juicebox button on the site.
Nice.
We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and so all donations are tax deductible. And if you want to support, you can go to the Juicebox or you can contact me. All my information's on there and go from there.
For sure. And can you give us a hint at what is next for Marin County or even other stuff that you're working on?
So the next thing is going to be that clinic on the 14th, 15th of October. We're going to have 2 Olympic gold medalists at the clinic. The women's water polo team in the USA is the best in the world, and they've won the last 3 Olympic games. And we're just going to have a tournament every single month. And then sometime in 2023, the goal is to have a free tournament, to take all of this stuff that we've been doing and not even tell the teams that it's free. But when it comes time, when the schedule's out, when everybody's going to show up, I tell everybody it's free. You guys don't have to pay. The kids, everything, everybody's just come in and have fun and play. And if I could do one of those per year, if I could have one free tournament per year, I just think it would be huge for the sport, huge for the community. That's my ultimate goal.
And where can listeners follow Marin County Swim Association on social and you as well?
You could just follow the Marin County Swim Twitter, and I post some updates there. But I think the best place, you can add your name or your email to the email list on swimmarin.com and sort of get updates on what we're doing. And the newsletter that you two are producing has given me some ideas about maybe doing something similar, maybe a monthly thing for those people, because I just love what you guys are doing and the image and the front-facing image that you're giving Juicebox. I think it's just really awesome. And I want to try to take some of those ideas and try to do the same for my organization.
Oh, thanks, Stevie. Yeah, we like putting Juice News together every week. It's kind of fun. But I think also Sage's art is part of what makes it so great, as well as writing from Felixander and everyone else who's working at Juicebox. So it's this fun community effort that we get to highlight every week.
Absolutely. I think aggregating it all into one thing, though, that looks nice and looks cool and professional, I think that goes a long way. So take the credit.
Well, thank you so much, Stevie, for taking the time to dive into the deep end together.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. This is one of the first times I've been able to merge my crypto life with my real life at length. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story and the goals that I have for what I'm doing as a whole. So thank you.
Yeah, just in time for the merge. So
yeah, exactly.
It's perfect.
Merge is the word this week for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stevie, and talk soon.
All right. Talk soon.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast. You can find us online at juicebox.money and on Twitter at juiceboxeth. Join the conversation at discord.gg/juicebox.
The Juicebox Podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed by guests and the hosts do not reflect the views of JuiceboxDAO or the Juicebox Podcast. The Juicebox podcast is not investment advice or a solicitation to make any financial decisions. Projects on the Juicebox protocol are not vetted by JuiceboxDAO.
Each project on the Juicebox protocol is responsible for its own crowdfunding parameters. The tokenomics of one project may differ from other projects on the protocol. Do not purchase JBX tokens, other cryptocurrencies, or make contributions to projects in anticipation of financial returns. Please do your own research.